like the Roman Gonzalez's and like the Lomachenkos and like the Zhao Shimings, and it's obvious what they're trying to do. But I don't want you people to be fooled. Roman Gonzalez is the worst number one pound for pound fighter. Number one pound for pound fighter in the history of the pound for pound list, and Dougie Fisher should be ashamed of his motherfucking self.
All right, hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing. Now, as you guys heard, a certain YouTuber by the name of AJ Knows Boxing, he made a video recently in light of the Roman Gonzalez fight with Carlos Cuadras. He was very, very adamant that he believes that Carlos Cuadras won this fight, and that this performance that Roman Gonzalez displayed last Saturday night, I had a chance of being there, proved that Roman isn't the pound-for-pound king. Now, we've heard this from a lot of people, but AJ took this a step further. He didn't just say that Roman wasn't the pound-for-pound king. He went as far as to say Roman Gonzalez is the worst pound-for-pound fighter we have ever had in the sport of boxing. Now, when I hear this, you know, when you make a claim like this, you have to back it up. And what we got, as you guys can hear part of in his video, I'm gonna leave it for you guys in the description down below so you can watch for yourself. What we got in that video from AJ Knows Boxing was a bunch of emotion, a bunch of feelings, and really a bunch of hate, because what Roman Gonzalez is doing right now in the sport of boxing, you know, the guys he's beating, moving up weight classes, fighting on the road a lot, you know, it's to be appreciated. And with the current trajectory he's on, you know, you figure, you know, he has the luxury of being in what I deem as the golden age of smaller fighters. You know, a lot of the channels that don't follow the small weight classes don't understand this. That right now in the small weight classes, we have a lot of talent. Naoya Inoue, Shinsuke Yamanaka, Juan Francisco Estrada, Roman Gonzalez, Brian Viloria, Edgar Sosa, Donny Nietes, Luis Concepcion, you know, just a lot of guys who are just flat out putting in work. Williams Arroyo as well, and so, you know, a lot of these guys, none of these guys are really American, with the exception of Brian Viloria. So a lot of us American fight fans, unless we really go out of our way to follow these guys, have no reason to, because most of these guys are not on HBO or Showtime. But some of the best fights in the sport are happening in these small weight classes, and when you get a guy like AJ, whose perspective on boxing is like this big, you know, to say something like this pisses me off. And honestly, you know, you guys have seen the other video I did. You know, I'm trying to refrain from making these videos, but these people are making it very hard. Roman Gonzalez has earned his spot at #1. And if you're going to say he's not #1, you got to give justifiable reasons why. And he didn't do that. So, much like we did to our good friend Boxing Ego, AJ Knows Boxing will get the same treatment in this video as I ether him and break him down piece by piece. Now, we're going to go through this video, we're going to unpack it, and then I'm going to go through, just like in the Boxing Ego video, I'm going to show you guys, using screen share, to illustrate my points, whatever I'm saying. So we'll start with what he said. He said he obviously believes that he believes that Carlos Cuadras beat Roman. Now, is that crazy to say? No, it's not. I can see a scorecard where maybe you have 7-5 for Cuadras. I didn't see it that way. I think his inability to push Roman back and really control him cost him a lot of rounds. So I had it 8-4 for Roman, 8-4, 9-3, somewhere in that ballpark. I think those are fine. But I do see why some people might pick Cuadras. Now, that's a credit to Cuadras. That's not to discredit Roman. That's a credit to Cuadras. The fact that, you know, he was a champion who had made 5 or 6 title defenses, top 2 fighter at 115, the bigger guy. He proved himself, and I think his stock rose tonight, so it's more credit to him. But AJ is actually worse than Boxing Ego in this regard, because, you know, at least Boxing Ego had some semblance of knowledge of smaller fighters. This guy was just so open about it. You know, he said that Carlos Cuadras was the first guy, the first somebody Roman Gonzalez ever fought, which couldn't be any further from the truth. He fought Edgar Sosa, who has been a solid champion throughout the course of his career, made a whole host of title defenses. Juan Francisco Estrada, like I've said many times, who's become a unified champion. Recently vacated his titles, and I gotta do a video on that soon. But been a dominant champion within his own right. Brian Valori, a guy who was beating dudes in the pound for pound list, and Giovanni Segura. So, with that being said, AJ knows boxing. I mean, you can talk about a channel name. AJ knows boxing. Didn't know who these guys were, and he says that Roman can't be pound for pound number one because pound for pound his and I'm gonna quote him verbatim. This is what he said. He said, "Pound for pound is how you translate your fighting style to the top guys in the conversation of boxing. You will never put Roman in the same sense with a guy like Andre Ward or Guillermo Rigondeaux," which is crazy. It's funny he brings up those names because those guys haven't beat anybody in years. Now he's visibly frustrated because AJ's a guy that to my knowledge at least does like the Andre Wards of the world, the Floyd Mayweathers, those guys, those fighters. And there's nothing wrong with that, but he gets mad anytime someone says that maybe Kovalev is better or Roman Gonzalez is better. He's one of those kind of fans. So with that being said, he just goes really off tangent throughout the course of the rest of his video. He says that Roman Gonzalez is only pound for pound number one, and this is premeditated by Ring Magazine and HBO, and that the reason he's pound for pound number one is because they're going to use that as a marketing tool to corner the Asian market. That's why Roman Gonzalez is number one because he has a Japanese promoter. His weight class has a lot of prominent Japanese fighters, and HBO is putting their money into him to reach the Asian market. Now, how stupid can we be? Roman Gonzalez is not number one because of any sort of money he's going to bring to the table. When you talk about small weight classes, it's never about money. Okay, it's never about money. They don't generate that much money. $1 million payday at flyweight or 115 is looked at as almost damn near a $10 million payday because it's that hard to get that kind of payday in that division. So look, the main part of this video, I know I'm kind of rambling, I'm everywhere right now, but the main part of this video that I wanted to really touch on was that he said that Roman Gonzalez is the worst pound-for-pound fighter in the history of boxing. And he lists to degrade Roman. He says that how does Roman Gonzalez's name, Roman Gonzalez's name doesn't resonate or is not on the level of Roy Jones Jr., a Floyd Mayweather, a Oscar De La Hoya, Mike Tyson, Shane Mosley, etc., etc. So he's using their name recognition to discredit what he's accomplished as a fighter, which is ridiculous. And then you're gonna laugh at this. In fact, I'm just gonna play it for you guys. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna play what he said because AJ said that people. He said I got it right here. He said HBO is selling the public BS to boxing fans, and that Al Heyman fighters. Oh, and that he's slandering Al Heyman fighters. HBO is slandering Al Heyman fighters, and that Al Heyman fighters are quote unquote cashing in, winning world titles, and they're doing what they're supposed to do, fighting somebodies. And then he uses guys like the Charlo brothers and Danny Garcia. I mean, come on now. Danny Garcia hasn't fought anybody since he's been on PBC with Al Heyman. Really, he hasn't. And then the Charlos, I mean, you want to talk about basic, lower B, high C class fighters. That's what both of them are. They haven't beat anybody, and they're pricing themselves out already. Jamal's already pricing himself over the Julian Williams fight. So they haven't. None of those guys have fought guys in recent memory or been in a fight that was truly a threat to where they could lose. I mean, Jamal Charles did fight Austin Trout, but Trout's a little older, was significantly smaller than him in that fight, and he still lost like 3 or 4 rounds to Trout. So with that being said, those are terrible examples. So what I'm going to be doing throughout the course of this video is he mentioned a couple names. He mentioned all those guys on the pound-for-pound list. I'm going to give you guys 2 examples, all right? And I'm going to deconstruct this whole argument about Roman Gonzalez being the worst pound-for-pound boxer ever. And I'm going to use 2 very prominent names in boxing. One being a black fighter, one being a Mexican fighter, so you guys don't say that Brennan is racist. With that being said, Ring Magazine, if you go on BoxRec, you can get a list of boxing rankings dating all the way back to like 1920. But as far as pound-for-pound rankings, it doesn't start to like 1989. So we're gonna start there, and then I'm gonna use all these different fighters, all these different examples to illustrate my points. So, as you guys heard in the beginning of the video, he says Roman Gonzalez is the worst fighter ever, or worst pound-for-pound fighter ever, and that his name doesn't stack up to the likes of Pernell Whitaker, Mike Tyson, Julio Cesar Chavez, Oscar De La Hoya. So the two fighters that we're gonna use in this video to compare, as far as when they were pound for pound king, like what they did to actually get to that status. We're gonna use Mike Tyson and Oscar De La Hoya, and I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna deconstruct their resumes, and I'm gonna then come back and say, I'll give you the Gonzalez part side of it too. So, so here we go. So let me make sure I screen share this for you guys. All right, share, screen share. Oh yeah, screen share. All right, screen share. All right, you guys can see what's going on. All right, so as you guys can see, this is the AJ video. But yeah, these are the pound for pound rankings from 1989 by Ring Magazine. So as you guys can see, we have Mike Tyson here at number 1, just over the likes of Julio Cesar Chavez, Pernell Whitaker, and the great Michael Nunn. Now, Mike Tyson, obviously a great fighter. He had, when we talk about the wow factor in boxing, very few fighters have ever had the wow factor as much as Mike Tyson, which is why I feel like, his legacy will always live on. He was a good fighter. But I'll be honest, I'm a Tyson fan. I do have a Mike Tyson picture on my YouTube set, so don't get it twisted. I love Mike Tyson, but let's be real. His resume is overrated, honestly. His resume is overrated. Great skill set was great. I feel like he put one down as one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, but does have an overrated resume, and I think probably the best fighter he probably ever beat was Razor Ruddock, honestly, when he fought them. So with that being said, I wanted to say this. Mike Tyson was the pound for pound king in 1989, as you guys could see. At this point in time, he had already staked his claim as one of the most famous athletes on the planet. And we're going to break down 1989. So in 1989, Mike Tyson decided to fight two guys. He fought two guys in 89. He fought Frank Bruno and he fought Carl Williams. Now, both these guys at the time, they did have names in the division, but this was making no mistake about it. Neither Carl Williams nor Frank Bruno were the cream of the crop at heavyweight as far as skills go, and neither one of them are really, truly world beaters. So with that being said, Mike Tyson fought. We'll start with Frank Bruno because he fought him in February of 1989. So Frank Bruno, at the time, heading into the Tyson fight, he was coming off a whole string of wins, and he was a solid fighter. Based on with the little skill he did have, he was a solid fighter. But as we can see, Frank Bruno lost pretty much all of his big time step up fights. He got TKO'd by not just Mike Tyson, but Lennox Lewis. Mike Tyson twice actually. But he also got TKO'd by Lennox Lewis, Tim Witherspoon, James Smith. He was a guy that got knocked out quite frequently in his career. So with that being said, Frank Bruno never was a threat at the world-class top level. And Tyson fought him in 1989. This would be the first of 2 times he fought him. He fought him again in 96, and he went out, and he retired Bruno actually in 96. So with that being said, Bruno was coming off of a couple wins, as you guys can see. He had 4 wins coming into this fight with Tyson. He had He had 4 wins coming into this fight with Tyson. So he gets stopped by Tim Witherspoon in 86. Gets TKO'd by Tim Witherspoon. Then he fights James Tillis, who was a tough, heavyweight journeyman. Tillis has fought a whole host of guys. I know Tillis. I believe he fought Shavers, but he also fought Tyson as well. He fought Chuck Gardner. Don't know who that is. He fought Reggie Gross, who's I believe Reggie Gross went to prison or on a life sentence for being a stick-up guy and whatever. I just know he's in prison for life. And then he fought Joe Bugner. You guys, the hardcore heavyweight boxing fans, like my guy, Mr. Boxing Today, you guys remember Joe Bugner because he challenged Muhammad Ali for the heavyweight title in 1973 or 5. I forget the year, but it was in the 70s. So all these guys, they had names, but let's make no mistakes about it. Tillis was, past it a lot, when he fought Mike Tyson in 80, or Bruno, I should say. He was past it. But at the time he fought Bruno, James Tillis was 30 years old, and that was his 40th professional fight. Tillis had already been stopped by the likes of, Tim Witherspoon, Greg Page, and a very young Pinklon Thomas. So Tillis was made ready to order for Frank Bruno, and it was a fight he should have won. And as he did just that. He won the fight via TKO. Chuck Gardner was a can, got that win. Reggie Gross was a guy who had lost 3 of his last 5 fights, as you guys can see right here. So Gross was no world beater whatsoever. Now the name that stands out the most on here is Joe Bugner. Bugner wasn't a bad fighter. Actually, he was able to. He fought Ali twice. He lost to Ali, I believe it was like 73. And then he won like an 8-fight winning streak, and then he was able to then get a rematch with Ali. But by this time he fought Frank Bruno, Bugner was he was 37 years old. He had 73 fights. The guy was just past it, and he was a name to get on the resume to get him in line for a Tyson fight, which, as you guys can see right here, he got the Mike Tyson title fight, and he got stopped. So Bruno was no world beater, and in fact, the combined record of the fighters Frank Bruno beat, being Bugner, Reggie Gross, Chuck Gardner, James Tillis, the combined record of those 4 guys, it wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst either. It was it was 135 wins, 37 losses, and they had 94 combined wins by knockout. So, not the best record, but not the worst either. So, with that being said, Frank Bruno, as most heavyweight boxing fans would know, was no special fighter. Then you look at, I mentioned James Tillis earlier, so there was that. So that was the first guy to beat. Bruno, definitely not a world beater by any stretch of the imagination in his career. Then he fought Carl Williams. Now, Carl Williams, skill set wise, he was a skilled fighter. He had a good jab, but just nothing really outside of his jab, I would say. Nothing really ever truly stood out about Carl Williams. Now, Tyson stopped him in 93 seconds back in 1989, as you guys can see here. Williams was a guy that in his career, he lost every step-up fight he ever had. I'm going to show you guys right now. So I believe he had 10 losses, 30-10 or something like that. So, yeah, 30-10 he had 6 times. So as you can see in the career of Carl Williams, he lost every step-up fight he ever had. He lost Tim Witherspoon, got stopped by Mike Tyson, got stopped by Tommy Morrison, stopped by Frank Bruno. Earlier in his career, when he was younger, he lost unanimous. His first loss of his career was the 17th pro fight to Larry Holmes. Then he fights Mike Weaver. Now, Mike Weaver, wait, my bad. I'm getting confused, guys. Scratch everything I just said. Carl Williams was a solid fighter. Carl Williams beat Trevor Berbick, and he beat Trevor Berbick. He beat a couple solid guys, but the guy I'm trying to talk about mainly is not Carl Williams. It's actually Mike Weaver. So we're gonna go to Mike Weaver. My bad. Mike Weaver was actually the guy who lost all of his step-up fights, and Mike Weaver, 41-18, good, it was a decent heavyweight, I guess, but lost all of his step-up fights. You guys can see by the red. He lost to Larry Holmes. He lost to Pinklin Thomas. He got stopped by Pinklin Thomas. He got stopped by James Smith. He got stopped by Michael Dokes. Got stopped by Lennox Lewis. Mike Weaver, was never he was far from a world beater. He was a guy that could probably beat the lower to mid-level heavyweights, but he was never a guy that really truly beat anybody at the world-class level like that. So Mike Weaver was able and this is the point I wanted to illustrate. Mike Weaver was able in 86, I believe 86, yeah. 1986 he fought Carl Williams, and I believe that was the year he stopped him, if I'm correct. This is Carl Williams. Yeah, he fought Weaver in 86, and Weaver scored a TKO victory over Carl Williams, which really, to me, says a lot about Carl Williams and the type of fighter he was. I mean, he was a decent fighter. I believe he won the New York Golden Gloves or something like that. But, yeah, Weaver got him out of there in 2 rounds in 86. And it really just exposed the fighter that Carl Williams was. So these are the guys that Mike Tyson beat to become pound-for-pound king. And like I said, I'm a Mike Tyson fan. I have a picture of him on my wall. I hope to one day interview him. But Tyson lost to Holyfield, got stopped by James Douglas, Buster Douglas. He was never the same fighter after Cus D'Amato, just did have the discipline. Really, never beat anybody who was like A-level fighter like that. I mean, I believe the best one, probably his best win was easily in 1991 when he fought Roddick. So if there was ever a year for him to be a pound-for-pound king, I guess you could probably say 91 would be that year, but 91 was not that year for him. So Tyson's resume, it has names, but I don't think it has a true like prime A-level guy like that. And this is the guy that AJ was saying. This is the guy that AJ was saying that Roman doesn't stack up to this guy, and I hate this. I hate to break it to many people out there who might not like Roman Gonzalez, but Roman Gonzalez's resume definitely stands up to Mike Tyson's resume, and I could definitely say that as far as the fighters he beat when he fought them, it's definitely better than Mike Tyson's resume. So with that being said, I just showed you guys that right there. Carl Williams lost to Mike Weaver. Mike Weaver lost every step fight he ever had, and those were Bruno Williams, not world beaters. Tyson beat them in 89 to become the pound-for-pound king, as you can see right here in the April 1990 issue of Ring Magazine for the ratings of 1989. So now we're going to go to Oscar De La Hoya, right? So Oscar De La Hoya, obviously a tremendous fighter, very skilled, Olympic, I believe he's an Olympic gold medalist. So in April '99, the Ring Magazine issue comes out. He's the #1 fighter over Roy Jones Jr., Vander Holyfield, Mark Too Sharp Johnson, Felix Trinidad, Ricardo Lopez, Mayweather, Nassim Ahmed, Johnny Tapia, and the list goes on and on. So if he's the pound-for-pound king at the time of that issue, then we had to look at what did he do in 1998. And in 1998, Oscar De La Hoya, as you're going to see right here, in 1998, Oscar De La Hoya fought two people. He fought Patrick Charpentier and Julio Cesar Chavez. Now, Julio Cesar Chavez has a huge name in the sport of boxing, definitely a legend, arguably the greatest Mexican fighter of all time. But who the hell is Patrick Charpentier? Now, we're going to go to Patrick Charpentier. These are the guys that Oscar beat to become pound-for-pound #1. I'm just going to show you guys. Now, look. Patrick Charpentier, as you guys can see by his record, is going to come on the screen right now as we wait for it to load. He was not a world beater whatsoever. He was not a very good fighter to begin with. Definitely overmatched in the fight with De La Hoya. I'm waiting for him to come up. Okay, so Charpentier was 27-5-1 in his career. Oscar, if I'm not mistaken, Oscar retired him, knocked him out in 3 rounds in 1998. Now, Charpentier had 3 fights leading into that one. This was the De La Hoya fight was in June of 1998. So 3 fights. This last 3 fights would date all the way back to September of 1997. He fights Virgil Petracci, Wayne Boudreaux, and Rene Uranga. And the combined record of those 3 guys, as you can see, the records aren't good, but the combined record right here, as I have it in front of me, is 32-25. So it's not like Charpentier was fighting any killers or anybody with a semblance of talent at that time. He was beating a bunch of bums and cans, and to go from that to fighting a world-class guy like De La Hoya, De La Hoya stops him in the 3rd round of that fight. So that right there shows you that he was overmatched. So that's one of the guys he beat in '98, Patrick Charpentier. Then he fights Julio Cesar Chavez. Now, Chavez is a legend. Let's not get it twisted. He's a guy that's definitely a top 50 fighter of all time. But Chavez, at that time, he had 104 fights coming into that one, was definitely very old. And in 1998, he had 3 fights. He fought 3 people in '98. He fought in '98. Let's see, '98 he fought 3 guys. He fought obviously De La Hoya, but before De La Hoya, he fought Miguel Angel Gonzalez and then Ken Siguriani. Now, he beat both those, or he had a split decision draw with Miguel Angel Gonzalez, and he had a TKO victory over Ken Siguriani. Now, he was still, I guess, a solid guy, but he was definitely past it. 1998 was, he was born in what year? He was born in 1962, so 1998, that would have made him 36 years old, 104 fights. That's a lot of wear and tear on the body for Julio Cesar Chavez, and he didn't fight nobody either. Look, I'm gonna show you guys this as well. We're gonna start with Miguel Angel Gonzalez. So he was 42-1, which looks good on the surface, right? But let's go look at some of the guys Miguel Angel Gonzalez fought before he fought Chavez. Now, before he fought Chavez in 1998, he had fought Oscar De La Hoya. Well, he fought Oscar De La Hoya in '97. Oscar hit him with that UD, got the win there. Then he fights Chavez '98. But sandwiched in between that, he fights Roberto Granciosa, and he was 20-16. So Miguel Angel Gonzalez didn't beat nobody. He beat a freaking bum before he fought Chavez. And Gonzalez, as you can see later on in his career, he would be used as an opponent because he really never beat anybody that was truly, truly good. He lost to Corey Spinks, Luis Collazo. Then he fought a couple cans. I mean, earlier in his career, he didn't really fight. I'm not really too sure about these guys, but over here. But I know above, he was used as a can later on in his career. So he fights a guy who was 20-16. Then he gets a Chavez fight, and then De La Hoya beats Chavez in the first of two fights, I believe. Because I know he fought Chavez twice. Let's see, he fought Chavez. Let me make sure I'm not tripping here. He fought Chavez '98. And then he fought him. Actually, he fought him. This is the second time he fought him. He knocked Chavez out in '96, but Chavez got the rematch in '98. So, with that being said, these are the guys that De La Hoya beat to become pound for pound number one. So, yeah, they have name value, and companies and promotional companies have done a good job of putting their money behind Tyson and their money behind De La Hoya, which is why we know so much about him, which is why their names mean something in America. But make no mistake about it, in 1989, Tyson didn't beat anybody special to become pound for pound king. In '98, De La Hoya did not beat anybody special to become pound for pound king. In fact, let me show you something. Let me just do this, okay? Because I can guarantee you, without even looking, I'll look at we'll go with Roy Jones Jr. Look at Roy Jones Jr. because in like '98, what was Roy Jones Jr. doing in '98? Let's look at what Roy did. I can guarantee you what he did was more worthy of being pound for pound number one than what De La Hoya did. So we'll go to Roy Jones Jr. in 1998. 98. Actually, no. Scratch what I said. It wasn't. Forget everything I just said. It wasn't. I'm tripping. But yeah, man. Freaking De La Hoya. I mean, I guess at that time you could probably put him at pound for pound number one, but he didn't beat anybody special to get to that point. That's my whole point of what I'm trying to say. And I think Roman, what he's been able to do, and I'm gonna show you guys that in a minute after I look at this. Yeah, okay, he was an actor that year. So yeah, Roman, I feel he beat better guys to become pound for pound king than Tyson and De La Hoya did on their way to become pound for pound king. I mean, like I said, I just showed you guys the records. I gave you the combined records. I gave you a little summary of who those guys beat and who they lost to. I mean. So it is what it is. I'm just giving you guys as it is. AJ didn't know what he was talking about at all whatsoever. So Roman, right? So Floyd retires after May of 20. After May of, we're gonna count everything after May 2nd because Floyd said after May 2nd he's retiring, right? So we're gonna start from Edgar Sosa, right? So Floyd retires. Roman Gonzalez gets bumped up to number one pound for pound, and he fights Edgar Sosa on the Golovkin-Monroe undercard. Now, keep in mind, just 3 fights ago, he had just been Akira Higashi for the lineal championship. But Edgar Sosa, because AJ said, Sosa had 8 losses. Who was Sosa? He didn't know, AJ wasn't too familiar with Sosa. So we're going to go through Sosa, right? Because Sosa is a good fighter. One could even argue that he's a fringe Hall of Fame fighter. And look, he's got another huge fight coming up against Donnie Nietes. That's going to be a great fight over there at the StubHub Center in Carson, California. I'll have coverage for that one, but I wanted to show you guys this about Sosa, right? So, earlier in his career in 2007, he fights Brian Viloria for the vacant WBC World Flyweight title, and he wins a majority decision. Now, look, a lot of the times when you win a title, it's always about who you beat to get the title. And Sosa beat a very good fighter in Viloria, as I illustrated in my Andre Ward video. Viloria beat Giovanni Segarra, who was on the pound-for-pound list ahead of Andre Ward at the time Ward won the Super 6. So Viloria, definitely no slouch at that time. So after he beats Viloria, look, I'm going to show you guys, right? I'm going to show you guys. So he beats Viloria for the title, right? And then he makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He makes like 10 title defenses. He made 10 title defenses. All right. Then he loses to Robert Mayol via TKO. Then he gets his record back up. Starts getting some wins under his belt. And then he's eventually able. And then he puts himself in a position to fight this guy's name, who I can't say, but this guy went on to be a pound-for-pound fighter. I don't know his name, but this dude went on to be a pound-for-pound fighter. So Sosa has proven himself to be a good fighter. He beat Giovanni Segura himself. I mean, Segura was, Segura is one of the hardest punches pound for pound in boxing, period, at that weight. So he's got to beat Segura, Valoria. Sosa is definitely a good fighter, and he has a chance to add another really good name on his resume in Donny Nietes on September 24th. So Roman blasts him out of there in like 2 rounds, and he makes his presence felt in America, right? Then he fights Valoria for 2015. Like I said, Valoria, real good fighter. Valoria has, beating guys in the pound-for-pound list. In fact, I'm going to have to show you guys this again. I know I did it in the Boxing Eagle video, but I'm sadly going to have to do it again. So let me find this real quick. So let me show you guys what I'm talking about. So Valoria, you guys may not know Valoria that well, but see, 2011. Right here. Valoria beat Giovanni Segura, who was number 9 in 2011 on the pound-for-pound list. I had Andre Ward after the Ward won the Super 6. So Valoria is clearly not a bad fighter at all. Let's go back to Valoria. Oh crap, Valoria's over here. So Valoria's over here. Valoria, yeah, but in that fight, Roman Gonzalez, he even won a body shot. Roman had to show some will and some grit and some mettle, and that he could withstand that. And in the same round, he stopped Valoria. So Valoria has been a guy who easily, just based on the Segura win, you could make the argument that he's the 3rd or the 4th best flyweight of this era, but he's definitely been a top guy at that weight class for a very long time. Roman beat him. Roman beat Valoria in a second fight in America. So Valoria was a really good win for Roman. After he beats Valoria, and I know I'm talking, guys, so I'm making a point here. After he beats Valoria, he beats McWilliams Arroyo. Arroyo is an Olympian. And then he beats Carlos Cuadras. So these are the 4 fighters that he has beaten since he's been named pound-for-pound king. And then before he was named pound-for-pound king, he beat Akira Yagashi, who was the lineal champion at flyweight. Yagashi himself beat Edgar Sosa, as we're going to see right here. Edgar Sosa, he beat him in 2013. Oscar Blanquet, another solid guy, beat him. And then since then, he's actually regained a title, and he's now champion once again. So Yagashi was a good win. Roman became lineal champion that way. He beat Ramon Garcia Morales, who was solid. Roman's beat some guys. Yutaka Nida, where's he at? Yutaka Nida, he beat in his 21st fight. Yutaka Nida is was the best minimum weight fighter behind Ivan Calderon for a number of years. Kasunori Takayama, who recently just picked up a title. I mean, look, I'm gonna show you guys, 31-8. Yes, but look, just picked up a title recently. So with that being said, Roman's beat some guys. Roman's definitely staked his claim as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter ever. And look, I feel like when you talk about the landscape of pound-for-pound fighters, you gotta understand that when you talk about guys like De La Hoya, he didn't beat anybody. Tyson really didn't beat anybody to become pound-for-pound king. Years before that, they put the groundwork in to become pound-for-pound king. But I'm talking about the year before they were named pound-for-pound king, they didn't beat anybody. And Roman has beaten somebody, because those guys I named, Valoria, Arroyo, Estrada, I didn't say Estrada, Arroyo, Valoria, Cuadras, and Sosa, all those guys were either top 10 guys or the champ in the division. And you got to understand that. Roman was fighting these guys back to back to back to back. There was no tune-up fights. There was no stay busies. It was just those guys back to back to back. So for AJ to say that this guy is the worst pound-for-pound fighter in boxing, it really shows AJ's lack of IQ for the sport. It shows that AJ doesn't know what he's talking about. And yeah. Oh, I'm gonna back later. So in closing, what I really wanted to convey and what I really wanted to say to our friend AJ Knows Boxing is that simply your channel name, I should say, is not factual. When it comes to the matter of smaller weight classes and particularly Roman Gonzalez, you don't know boxing and you should stick to what you do know, which, judging off of what you said in your video would be PBC Al Haymon fighters. You know about that, but you don't know about smaller weight classes. Roman Gonzalez is a guy who didn't have it the easy way like some of the guys you name, like Oscar De La Hoya, like Mike Tyson. He had to fight outside of third world poverty. That's number one. Fighting out of third world poverty is hard enough. Then to fight in third world poverty, basically fighting in a division where you can't duck anybody. So he couldn't do what Oscar De La Hoya did, and he couldn't do what Mike Tyson could do as far as having red carpet treatment and building your record up against cans. This guy had to fight the best. He had to be active, and if he wanted to become a relevant name in the sport of boxing, he had to fight sometimes 6 times a year. And simple. I'm gonna screen share this for you guys, and we're gonna close the video within the next like 5 to 10 minutes. But here's what I wanted to convey to you guys. All right. He said that Roman's name doesn't stack up to the likes of Mike Tyson. All right. Now Mike Tyson, like I said, definitely a great fighter, the youngest heavyweight champion in the history of boxing. So this is not something we take for granted. Mike Tyson is to be respected. But in comparing Mike Tyson to Roman Gonzalez, right? Mike Tyson lost his fights against James Douglas. He lost to Holyfield twice, and he lost to Lennox Lewis. So as we can see right here, and I'm gonna highlight what I want to point out, which is in his world title fights, Tyson had 4 losses. He was 12-4 in world title fights with 10 KOs. Now, when fighting outside of America, he was 4-1 with 4 knockouts. Not bad, but when you talk about that in comparison to Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez, Gonzalez 15-0 with 9 knockouts in world title fights. 19-0 outside of Nicaragua. 19-0 with 13 KOs outside of Nicaragua. So when we speak about Gonzalez, this is a guy who has done it the hard way. He's fought in Japan. He's fought in Mexico. He's fought in front of little to nobody outside of his native Nicaragua. So Roman Gonzalez has beaten a who's who of guys in the smaller weight classes. I mentioned Yuta Kaneda. I mentioned Kasunori Takayama. I mentioned Roman Garcia Morales. I mentioned Juan Francisco Estrada, Francisco Rodriguez Jr., Akira Yagashi, Edgar Sosa, Brian Valoria, and Carlos Cuadras. And let me also say this about Roman Gonzalez, and this is something that boxing fans need to start understanding, and that's the simple fact that when we talk about the 115-pound division, that division right there, because now you have Roman in that division, you have Cuadras in that division, you have Naya Inoue in that division, and you have Juan Francisco Estrada, who recently vacated his titles at flyweight to move up in hopes of a Roman Gonzalez fight. So when you talk about those 4 guys, Gonzalez, Inoue, Cuadras, and Estrada, those guys right there are 4 pound-for-pound level fighters. If you did a pound-for-pound top 15, these guys are in it. Pound-for-pound top 10, Roman, Estrada, and Inoue are definitely on it. So if you make a pound-for-pound top 15, 115, the top 4 guys at 115 occupy damn near a third of that. And Roman is fighting in a golden age of the small weight classes, and you could even say that this might be the best era as far as the small weight classes go, because when we look at a guy like Michael Carbajal, when we look at a guy like Ricardo Lopez, these guys did not have luxury, did not have the amount of opposition of great opponents that Roman has, and I think that's what's going to separate him and make him a top 25 all-time great along with his skill set. So yeah, for AJ to say that when Roman has beaten more name opposition than, as far as like he didn't have red carpet treatment against in his career like Tyson had, like Oscar De La Hoya had. He had to do it the hard way, and the only reason we ever know him, only reason we even know who he is now is because he had to force us to watch him, and he had to force his way on HBO, and he's done that. He's done that, and he's still trucking along, and here we stand at 46-0, and the guy has a chance to to tie Floyd slash Rocky Marciano's record and do something impressive in the sport of boxing. Regardless. So that being said, AJ really needs to go do his homework. And I'm not just talking about his homework for college, but his homework as far as boxing goes, because he spoke out of his feelings. He spoke out of hatred. He spoke out of just stupidity. And when you do that, you really discredit yourself. So I actually, Boxing Ego looks a lot more respectable now that AJ has made his video, because at least Boxing Ego knew a little bit about small weight class. AJ didn't know a damn thing. Roman has earned everything he's gotten in boxing, as you guys can see here by the who's who of names he's beaten in the small weight classes. I mean, we're talking about 2 A-level fighters in Quadras and Estrada, and then talking about a couple guys who have been dominant champions in Yagashi and Sosa, and Valori has been a mainstay for a while. And Takayama's won every version of the minimum weight title. So AJ, go do your homework. You don't know what you're talking about. Roman Gonzalez is operating at a level of greatness right now that's rare in the sport of boxing. Seriously. So with that being said, Brendan Taylor, True School Sports here. I'm gonna end the video. So take care, guys.